My husband allowed his mother to move into our house. Now, she's trying to take my place as his wife. Can you imagine waking up one day to find your own home, your own life, being stolen right out from under you? And the person you love most in this world, your husband, just stands by, letting it happen? It's a gut-wrenching feeling, believing your marriage is being destroyed by someone else's agenda, and the man who swore to protect you seems completely blind. But let me tell you, there's a breaking point, a moment when something inside you just snaps, and you realize you have to fight for your life back, even if it means losing everything. My husband and I, we were together for 11 years. We met in college, practically kids, and built our entire life from nothing. I mean, I worked double shifts as a waitress, busting my butt so he could finish law school. And when he finally passed the bar, I remember crying, just pure relief, thinking, finally, we can breathe. We bought our home 4 years ago, a beautiful place that I poured every single cent of my inheritance into, money my dad left me. I trusted my husband implicitly, believing this was our future, our safe haven. Then, about 8 months ago, his mother called him, sobbing, claiming she couldn't afford rent anymore. Without even a conversation with me, he told her she could move in. I found out when she literally showed up on our doorstep with 6 suitcases, acting like she was here on vacation. My heart just sank. She'd never liked me, not from day one. Always making snide comments about how I wasn't good enough, how her son deserved better. I'd always just swallowed it, for my husband's sake. I told myself this would be temporary. God, was I wrong? The first week, she completely rearranged my kitchen. My kitchen. She even threw out my spices, calling them too ethnic, and replaced them with her own bland substitutes. When I tried to politely explain that I wasn't happy, she just blinked at me, innocent as can be, and said, "Oh, I was just trying to help, dear. You clearly don't know how to keep a proper home." And my husband? He told me to just let it go. The second week, she started cooking all his meals. I'd come home from work, tired, looking forward to dinner with my husband, and there they'd be, sitting at a table set for 2. She'd look up, feigning surprise. "Oh, I didn't realize you'd be eating here. I only made enough for me and my son." Again, my husband's response. Let it go. By the third week, she'd taken over his laundry. She'd meticulously fold his clothes, put them away, but leave mine soaking wet in the washing machine until they smelled. When I finally snapped and asked her what the hell she was doing, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I only have energy to take care of my son." And you guessed it, my husband just said, "Let it go." But it didn't let go. She escalated. By the second month, she was answering our door, our phone, telling visitors she was the woman of the house. She'd refer to me, to our neighbors, as the girl who also lives here. She criticized everything. If I vacuumed before noon, I was disrupting her sleep. If I watched TV past 9, I was being disrespectful. If my husband and I made plans, she'd suddenly feel sick, needing him to stay home. It was psychological warfare, and I was losing. I tried talking to him. Dozens of times. Every single conversation was the same. He'd sigh, tell me his mother was old, lonely, needed him. He'd ask, "Why can't you just be patient?" Or, even worse, "Why do you always have to start problems?" I felt like I was losing my mind, like I was living with 2 strangers. Then, last month, something truly broke. I came home early with a migraine, just wanting peace and quiet. I opened my bedroom door, our bedroom door, and there she was, lying in my bed, on my side, watching my TV. I asked her, completely floored, what she was doing. She just shrugged. "My bedroom doesn't get good light. I'll be using this room during the day now. You're never home anyway." I went straight to my husband. This was it. This had to be the line. I expected him to finally take my side. But he just shrugged, looked away. "She's not hurting anything. Why do you always make everything into a fight?" Something inside me snapped. Truly. It was like a delicate glass breaking. "Whose house is this?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "It's our house," he mumbled. "Whose money paid for it?" He went quiet. "Whose name is on the deed?"
His face changed then.
The easygoing, passive demeanor vanished, replaced by a flicker of fear. I told him, with a clarity I hadn't felt in months, I want your mother out by the end of the month. He called me heartless. Said I was forcing him to choose between his wife and his mother. I just stared at him. This is my house, paid for with my father's money. He got angry. If she goes, I go. I looked at him, really looked at the man I'd given 11 years of my life to. I walked straight back to the bedroom. His mother was still there, reclining like a queen. You have 30 days to leave, I told her. She just laughed, a cruel, mocking sound, and yelled for my husband. Your wife has lost her mind. He came running, stood right next to her, and the two of them just stared at me like I was the problem. 30 days. Both of you, I repeated, my voice shaking but firm. He grabbed my arm. If I do this, our marriage is over. I pulled away. Our marriage was already over the moment you let another woman replace me. Her smirk vanished. That felt good. I walked to my closet and started pulling out suitcases. He followed, bewildered. What are you doing? I'm not staying where I'm treated like a stranger. He started to panic. Calm down. We can talk. His mother appeared in the doorway, a triumphant glint in her eye. Let her go. She was never right for you anyway. I stopped packing. Slowly, I turned, waiting. What would he do? What would he say? He didn't say a word. He just stood there, mouth agape, while his mother waited for him to defend her. The silence stretched, so heavy I could hear the clock ticking in the hall. His mother's face started to turn red. She grabbed his arm, urging him. Still nothing. I went back to packing, throwing clothes into the suitcase. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to keep moving. If I stopped, I knew I'd fall apart completely. His mother made a disgusted sound. You better say something before she actually leaves. He finally moved, putting a hand on my arm to stop me. I recoiled. Don't touch me, I warned. He stepped back, fear flashing in his eyes for the first time. His mother was still in the doorway, watching like this was her favorite show. I walked right past both of them, not looking into the guest room. I locked the door and just stood there breathing. Deep, shaky breaths. Then I pulled out my phone. The real estate lawyer I used to wait on at the restaurant, Sarah, popped up in my contacts. I hit call before I could talk myself out of it. She answered, kids yelling in the background. I asked if she remembered me. Of course, she said. What's going on? I poured it all out, my voice cracking, but I got through it. She went quiet, then told me to hold on. When she came back, she said, I remember those free refills and extra fries you gave me when my cases were going bad. I almost cried right then. She asked if my name was on the deed, and I said yes along with my husband's. Who paid the down payment? She asked. My inheritance, I told her. A thoughtful sound. That gives you a lot of power. Legally, you have every right to decide who lives in your home. I asked her to make it official. She said she could send an eviction notice that would hold up in court. I thanked her, over and over. After I hung up, I felt a fresh wave of shame. I needed to call Maya, my best friend. She'd been asking for months if I was okay, but I'd always lied, saying work was busy. She was going to be so mad. But I hit her name anyway. She answered, What's up? You never call anymore. And just like that, everything came pouring out. The kitchen, the meals, the laundry, my mother-in-law in my bed. Maya kept interrupting. Oh my God. Are you serious? I'm going to kill him. When I got to the part about the eviction notice, her voice changed completely. I'm coming over. You shouldn't be alone. I tried to tell her it was late, but she just hung up. Footsteps in the hall. A knock on the guest room door. Please, can we talk? It was my husband. We can talk, I said through the door. After you tell your mother to start packing. That's not fair. You're being unreasonable. I didn't answer. He knocked again, calling my name, but I just stared at the door. Finally, I heard him walk away, his steps heavy, slow. Maya showed up 45 minutes later, her boyfriend with her. I opened the door, and she pushed past me, hugging me so hard I could barely breathe. Her boyfriend, A massive guy named Chris who played college football looked uncomfortable until Maya waved him in. I could see why she brought him. He was huge, took up half the hallway just standing there. "Where are they?" Maya demanded. I pointed towards the living room, where my mother-in-law's voice was getting louder and louder on the phone. Maya pulled me back into the guest room, Chris staying guard in the hall. She closed the door. "Tell me everything again. From the beginning." This time I didn't rush. I told her every single thing that had happened over 8 months. Her face grew angrier and angrier. By the end, she was pacing. "You should have called me the first week, when she threw out your spices." I told her I kept thinking it would get better. She stopped, looked at me. Some things don't get better on their own. We heard my mother-in-law's voice, even louder now, carrying through the whole house. "She's being completely unreasonable, trying to throw an old woman out on the street." Maya rolled her eyes, so hard, I thought they might get stuck. "That woman has some nerve," she muttered. I felt exhausted, just collapsed onto the guest bed. Maya sat next to me. "You can crash at my place tonight." I shook my head. "This is my house. I'm not leaving." She smiled. "That's more like it." She told Chris through the door we were staying. He said he'd run home and grab her an overnight bag. Maya kicked off her shoes, lay on the floor. "I'm staying right here. Your husband can deal with it." "Thank you," I whispered. "Shut up," she said. "That's what friends do." We lay there in the dark. I could hear my mother-in-law still talking, her voice finally stopping around midnight. Maya was already asleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the last 11 years. When did it change? Or was it always this way, and I just didn't see it? Every time I started to drift off, I'd jerk awake. Morning came too early. I smelled coffee, heard pans clinking. Maya sat up, stretched. "Ready to face them?" "No," I said, "but I have to." We walked down the hall together. My husband's voice, with his mother's, from the kitchen. We rounded the corner. He was at the stove, making eggs, while she sat at the table, newspapers spread out, like she owned the place. Neither of them looked at me. He kept his back turned. Maya walked past them both and started making coffee for us. I poured myself a cup. The hot liquid burned my throat a little, but I welcomed the feeling. It gave me something to focus on besides the two people pretending I didn't exist. I set my mug down. "The eviction notice will arrive today," I said, looking directly at his back. His shoulders stiffened. The spatula stopped moving. "Your mother needs to start looking for a new place." The pan hit the stove so hard I thought it might crack. He spun around, face already red. "Are you really going to destroy our family over this?" His voice was louder than he intended. His mother's head snapped up. She looked between us, like a tennis match. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, figuring out how to use this. The tears started before she even opened her mouth. I knew what was coming. "How could you do this to me?" Her voice shook, climbed higher. "I have nowhere to go. I'm an old woman, and my own son is going to throw me out on the streets." She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking with sobs that sounded practiced. Fake. I took another slow sip of coffee, watching her performance. My husband moved towards her like a puppet on a string, his hand reaching for her shoulder. I stayed exactly where I was. Didn't say a word. The silence seemed to bother her more than anything I could have said. The crying got louder, more dramatic. She peeked through her fingers at me, seeing if I reacted. When she saw my calm face, the crying stuttered for just a second. Maya's door opened. Footsteps. She walked into the kitchen in sweatpants and one of Chris's oversized shirts, hair messy. "Good morning, everyone." Her voice was way too cheerful for the scene. My mother-in-law's face twisted with anger. Maya went straight to the coffee maker. "I'd be happy to help you start packing today if you want," she said to my mother-in-law, a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We could get boxes from the grocery store and start with your room." The crying stopped. Like a switch had been flipped. My mother-in-law's hands dropped. She stared at Maya with a look that could freeze water. My husband looked confused, opened his mouth, but Maya just kept smiling, sipping her coffee. Something loosened in my chest. I hid my own smile behind my mug. My husband grabbed my elbow, pulled me towards the hall. "We need to talk." His voice was quiet, urgent. I let him lead me to the guest room. He shut the door, ran his hands through his hair. "Please reconsider this." His eyes looked tired, dark circles. "My mother will find a place, but she needs more than 30 days. I crossed my arms, leaned against the door. She's had 8 months to save money and figure out her situation. But she didn't know she would need to. His voice climbed. She thought this was permanent. "Exactly the problem," I said, voice level, calm, though I wanted to scream. "She moved in here, thinking she could take over my life. And you let her." He stopped pacing. "That's not fair." "What's not fair," I countered, holding his gaze, "is that I've been a stranger in my own house for 8 months while you chose her comfort over mine every single time." He had no answer. The silence stretched until voices in the kitchen grew louder. We walked back out to find Maya still by the coffee maker. My mother-in-law was at the wall phone, dialing with sharp, angry movements. "I'm calling your sister," she said to my husband, glaring at me. "She needs to know what kind of woman you married." "Go ahead," I said, sitting at the kitchen table, wrapping my hands around my mug. The afternoon dragged on. My mother-in-law making angry phone calls. My husband hovering, not knowing whose side to take. Maya stayed close to me. Every time the crying fit started, Maya would offer to help her pack. Around 3, the doorbell rang. My husband answered it. I heard voices. Then he came back, holding a large envelope with an official seal. His face had gone pale. His hands shook. "A courier," he mumbled, holding the envelope like it might explode. My mother-in-law snatched it, tore it open. Her eyes scanned the paper. White to bright red in seconds. "You can't do this," she shrieked. Maya flinched. "You can't just throw me out of my home." I stood slowly, walked over to her. "I absolutely can do this." My voice was quiet, steady. "And if you're not out in 30 days, I'll have the sheriff remove you." The paper crumpled in her hands. She looked at my husband. "Are you going to let her do this to your own mother?" He looked like he might throw up. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I turned, walked back to my coffee. The next few days blurred into a strange routine. My mother-in-law tried every trick, crying at breakfast, raging at dinner, clutching her chest, claiming heart problems. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't bear to be alone. I wrote everything down in a notebook. Date, time, what she said, what she did, his response. Maya helped me take pictures of her unpacked things, videos of her dramatic episodes when she didn't know we were recording. My husband moved to the couch after the second night. I'd see him, staring at the ceiling, when I got up for the bathroom. Sometimes, late at night, I heard him on the phone, a low voice, talking to his mother, even though she was just down the hall. When he did talk to me, it was always the same. "Can't you give her more time? Don't you remember, for better or worse? What happened to the woman I married, who was kind and patient?" I stopped responding after the 3rd day. There was nothing left to say. "That woman died," I said one morning, when he cornered me by the coffee maker. "She died a little bit every day for 8 months, while you chose your mother over her." His mouth opened and closed, no sound. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe we both were. The neighbors started knocking by the end of the week. I opened the door, stepped back. Mrs. Chun, who always waved. Mr. Rodriguez, across the street. Both looked uncomfortable. My mother-in-law watched from the living room, arms crossed. I pulled out my phone. "Here's my kitchen before she moved in." Swipe. "Here's what it looks like now." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. I showed them pictures of my bedroom, her things spread everywhere. I explained how she used my room during the day. Mr. Rodriguez shifted. I told them about dinner set for 2, my clothes left to rot. Both glanced at my mother-in-law, sitting perfectly still. Mrs. Chun touched my arm. "I'm sorry for believing what I was told." Mr. Rodriguez said, "He should have come to me first." They left quickly, talking on the sidewalk. Maya showed up an hour later with a bag from the hardware store. A new lock set, a drill. "We're securing your bedroom. Right now." We went upstairs. She worked on the doorknob while I held the door. My mother-in-law came up, stood in the hall, watching, mouth a thin line. Maya didn't even look at her as she installed the new lock, one that only opened with a key from the outside. She handed me both keys. Keep one with you. My husband came home while we tested it. He stood at the top of the stairs, staring at the new hardware. His face went pale. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He just turned, went downstairs, wordlessly. 7 days passed since the eviction notice. Every morning, every evening, I walked past her room. Same mess of clothes, papers, junk. Not a single box. Not one piece of furniture moved. Her closet bulged, dresser drawers hung open. On day 7, I stood in her doorway. She was reading a magazine like she had all the time in the world. She glanced up, smiled, a smile that made my stomach churn. She thought I was bluffing. She thought I'd back down, like I always had. The next morning, I called a moving company. Scheduled them for day 30. Everything in one bedroom, plus any common areas that belong to my mother-in-law. Will items be packed? If they're not, the movers will pack them and you send me the bill. I gave my credit card, confirmed the date. Then I walked to her room. The movers are coming in 3 weeks. Anything not packed will be packed for you and put into storage at your expense. Her face drained of all color. She stood up so fast the magazine fell. She started to speak, but I turned and walked away. My husband came home that evening, went straight to her room. I heard them, low voices, for almost an hour. When he finally came out, he walked into the kitchen where I was making dinner. Why haven't you started looking for apartments? His voice sounded tired, confused, like he genuinely didn't understand. I kept chopping vegetables, didn't turn around. My mother-in-law came down, walked into the kitchen behind me. I shouldn't have to look for places. This is my home now, too. The knife in my hand stopped. I set it down carefully, turned slowly to look at both of them. Something changed in my husband's face right then. His eyes got wider, his mouth slightly open, like he'd just understood something for the first time. He looked at his mother, then at me, then back at his mother. I watched the realization spread across his features. He finally saw what had been obvious to everyone else for months. His mother never planned to leave. She'd moved in with the intention of staying forever, of pushing me out of my own house. The look on his face told me he was seeing his mother clearly, maybe for the first time in his life. Have you even tried to find an apartment? He asked his mother. His voice was flat, hard, a way I'd never heard it. She lifted her chin. I don't need to find a place. My son wouldn't really let you throw me out. The words hung in the air. The entitlement was so thick I could almost taste it. She truly believed he would choose her. Always. My husband sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. His shoulders curved forward. He looked smaller somehow. I watched him, then turned back to my vegetables. This was something he needed to work through on his own. I couldn't do it for him. I wouldn't try. He had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. What kind of marriage. I left the kitchen, went upstairs, locked my door. Around 11 that night, a soft knock on my door. Can we talk? It was him. I got up, unlocked it. He walked in, sat on the edge of the bed, looking utterly exhausted. Hair sticking up, dark circles under his eyes. He sat for a minute, saying nothing. I waited. Finally he spoke. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. His voice cracked. He said he kept telling himself his mother just needed time. He thought she'd calm down, act normal. I sat next to him, but not too close. Did you honestly not see how she treated me? He was quiet for so long. Then, he looked down at his hands, nodded slowly. I saw everything. But I didn't want to deal with her reaction if I confronted her. It was easier to pretend things weren't as bad as they were. His voice cracked again. I chose the path that wouldn't cause me problems, and you paid the price for my cowardice. I just sat there, looking at him. Part of me wanted to comfort him. A bigger part was still so angry. 8 months of being treated like garbage. I appreciate the honesty, I said, but I need to see action, not just words. Your mother still needs to leave. And you need to be the one to make sure she actually does it. He looked up. What do you mean? I'm not going to be the bad guy anymore. You need to sit her down and tell her to start looking. He swallowed, nodded. We sat in silence a few more minutes. Then he got up and left. The next morning, I came downstairs to find him and his mother at the kitchen table. She was scrolling on her phone as usual. He cleared his throat. You need to start apartment hunting today. His voice shook a little, but he got the words out. She looked up confused. Then the phone went down. Her eyes got watery. The crying routine. I don't understand why everyone is being so cruel to me. I thought this was my home. I have nowhere else to go. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She reached for his hand. I stood in the doorway, watching, waiting. He pulled his hand back. The crying isn't going to work this time. His voice was stronger now. You have 3 weeks to find a place. That's final. Her face changed completely. The tears stopped. Her mouth got tight, eyes hard. She stood up so fast her chair scraped. You are a disappointment. A terrible son for choosing a woman over your own mother. I raised you better than this. He flinched when she called him a disappointment, but he didn't back down. You did this to yourself, by refusing to respect boundaries. She laughed, harsh and bitter. Boundaries are just an excuse to abandon me. I watched him grip the edge of the table, knuckles white. But he stayed in his seat. Then she played her final card. If I leave, I will never speak to you again. You will be dead to me. Her voice went cold and flat. I saw his face crumble a little. Real pain flashed across his features. He loved her, despite everything. The thought of losing her completely was hurting him. But I also saw something else, a building resolve. He sat there, breathing, while she stared him down. Finally, he spoke. That's your choice to make. But you are leaving in 3 weeks, whether you want to or not. His voice didn't shake this time. Her face went red. She grabbed her phone, stormed past me, and went upstairs. A few seconds later, her bedroom door slammed, rattling the walls. My husband sat at the table, head in his hands. I walked over, sat next to him. Neither of us spoke. We just sat there as the morning light filled the kitchen. After a while, he got up, went to shower. Later that day, I heard him on the phone, looking up apartment listings. Over the next week, I watched him actually help her. He'd come home from work, show her listings. He drove her to look at places, even though she complained about everything. I saw him setting boundaries. When she tried to guilt-trip him, he'd take a breath, calmly repeat, "You need to find a place." When she said she was too tired, he told her she needed to make time. She fought him every step, but he wasn't caving anymore. She tried one last manipulation, calling his relatives, telling them I was abusing her, forcing her out. 2 days later, his aunt called him. I heard her yelling from across the room. You should be ashamed of yourself for letting your wife treat your mother this way. He let her yell, then started explaining everything. The kitchen, the meals, her in my bed. 8 months of his mother trying to push me out. The yelling stopped. His aunt went quiet. Then she said something that made his eyes go wide. She'd heard stories. His mother had done similar things to other family members. Moved in with a cousin, did the same thing until the husband put his foot down. Another relative had to get a lawyer. My husband looked shocked. Why didn't anyone tell me? He asked. His aunt said the family didn't talk about it because his mother would throw a fit, cut people off. She had a pattern of moving in, taking over. He thanked his aunt, hung up, and sat on the couch, staring at nothing for a long time. With 2 weeks left, my mother-in-law finally signed a lease on a small apartment across town. He came home, told me she found a place, put down a deposit. She was furious, of course. Told everyone she was forced into this horrible situation. Cried to the neighbors, posted on social media. But the lease was signed. The move date was set. My husband looked exhausted, but also relieved. I never realized how much she manipulated me, he said, until I started pushing back. I told him I was glad he finally saw it. The week before moving day, I barely slept. He kept checking his phone, his mother texting him nonstop. He'd read them, put the phone face down without responding. The stress on his face was clear, but he didn't cave. One night, he turned to me. "We need to talk about getting help for our marriage. Her leaving isn't going to fix everything that broke." I agreed. We found a counselor specializing in family issues, booked our first session for the week after she moved out. The counselor's office was calm, soft lighting. We sat on opposite sides of the couch. He started talking first, about his mother moving in, not asking me, how he kept telling me to let it go. The counselor listened. Then she asked, "Why did you think it was okay to prioritize your mother over your wife?" He went quiet. He said he grew up believing taking care of his mother was his most important job. His father left early, his mother raised him alone, told him he was the man of the house. He felt responsible for her happiness, carried it into adulthood, without questioning it. The counselor explained that a wife is the priority in a marriage. He nodded. "I'm starting to understand that, but it feels wrong to put my mother second." She explained healthy boundaries with parents are necessary for marriage. His mother was an adult. He wasn't responsible for her emotions or life. He looked like someone had just explained something obvious he'd never seen. In our second session, the counselor asked me what I needed. "Consistent change," I said. "Not just temporary. I need him to prove he can set boundaries and keep them, even when she cries or guilt trips him. I need him to choose our marriage over his mother's feelings." He understood. He wanted to rebuild my trust. Said he knew it would take time, but he was willing to do the work. We got homework on communication expectations. We left feeling like maybe we had a chance. Moving day arrived, a Saturday morning in early fall. The movers showed up at 8. My mother-in-law answered the door in her bathrobe, like they were unwanted guests. "There must be some mistake." "I'm not going anywhere." The head mover looked confused, pulled out his paperwork. My husband came downstairs. "Start with the guest room," he told them. She stood in the hallway, watching them carry boxes and furniture, complete disbelief on her face. She kept looking at him, waiting for him to stop it. He just directed the movers, avoided her eyes. When they started loading her bed frame, she finally realized this was real. She followed him outside, grabbed his arm, crying. "I'll be all alone in that tiny apartment. I'm your mother. I raised you. This is how you repay me." He gently pulled his arm away, hugged her. But when she stopped crying and looked up, hopeful, he told her firmly, "You did this to yourself. By refusing to respect boundaries. You had 8 months to treat my wife with basic decency. You chose not to. You could have stayed if you had just been kind, but instead, you tried to push her out of her own home." Her face went from sad to angry in seconds. She stepped back. "You're weak. Controlled by her. She stole my son from me." Turned him against his own mother. My husband started to respond, but I opened the front door and walked outside. I stood next to him, looked at her directly. She stared back, pure hatred in her eyes. "You stole my son," she repeated. I didn't respond. Nothing left to say. The movers finished. She got into his car, so he could follow them. I stayed home, watching them drive away. The house felt different immediately. Like I could finally breathe. I walked through each room. Empty. Quiet. That night, after he came back, we sat in our living room for the first time in 8 months without her there. The tension slowly drained away. I felt my shoulders relax. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. We spent the weekend reclaiming our space. My kitchen went back to normal, my spices in their place. We moved furniture. Hung photos she'd taken down. It felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Sunday night, he apologized more deeply than ever before. He listed specific ways he failed me, acknowledged every time he chose her comfort over my well-being. He promised to do better, to prove it through actions. I told him I wanted to believe him, but I needed sustained change. We started therapy every week. Slowly, we rebuilt. He learned to set boundaries. She learned she couldn't manipulate him anymore. She called him every day for the first 2 weeks. I heard it ringing, watched him decline most calls. When he answered, conversations were short, low-voiced. She'd cry, beg him to visit, complain about her apartment. He finally told her firmly, once a week on Sundays. No discussion about me or our marriage. She screamed, called him ungrateful, said I poisoned his mind. He held the phone away, repeated the boundary, hung up. The next Sunday, she tried being sweet, concerned. He answered briefly. When she asked about me, he cut her off. That topic is off limits. She got angry. I have a right to know. You gave up that right when you refused to respect his wife and his marriage, he said. The calls continued, but he stuck to his boundaries. I watched him handle each call with growing firmness. Something shifted inside me. 3 months passed. The house felt completely different. I could walk into any room without finding her there, or hearing her voice. The kitchen was mine. My bedroom was mine. I started sleeping better. The constant tension lifted. I came home from work and felt actual relief, not dread. The silence was peaceful. I could relax on my own couch. We ate dinner together, talked about our days, without her inserting herself. I realized one night that I felt comfortable in my own home for the first time in 8 months. The weight on my chest was gone. October came. She called, demanding to know Thanksgiving plans. She announced she was coming. He took a deep breath. We're spending Thanksgiving alone this year, as a couple. She laughed, thinking he was joking. He repeated it. We need this time for our marriage. You're not invited. The line went quiet, then crying. How can you exclude your own mother? I'll be all alone. He calmly suggested she eat with his aunt or at her church. She switched to yelling. She's making you do this. You're choosing her over your own mother. He told her he was making his own choices. They were the right choices for his marriage. She hung up. He didn't call back. Thanksgiving arrived. We cooked a small meal together, ate at our dining table with candles lit. It felt like the first real holiday we'd shared in years. I started noticing the small things he did, proving his change. He shut down her invasive questions immediately. He responded to her complaints with practical suggestions, not a rush to fix everything. When she tried to invite herself over, he said no, clearly, and didn't waver. I watched him maintain these boundaries, week after week. He stopped making excuses for her. He started acknowledging out loud when she was trying to manipulate him. One Sunday, after a particularly difficult call where she sobbed about being abandoned, he sat next to me. I finally understand what you were dealing with, he said. Watching her try to control me from a distance, it must have been so much worse when she lived here. I didn't say anything, but something inside me softened. He was finally choosing us. Our anniversary was in December. We celebrated quietly at home. He cooked. I set the table. We talked about how close we came to losing everything. After dinner, he handed me a small, wrapped box. Inside, a delicate gold necklace with 2 initials intertwined. He fastened it around my neck. I want you to have something that represents both of us as equal partners. He said he had a long way to go to earn my trust, but he wanted to renew our vows someday, when he'd proven himself worthy. I touched the necklace. Tears welled up, but these weren't from anger or hurt. We sat on the couch, him holding my hand gently. I didn't pull away. My mother-in-law eventually stopped trying to force her way back into our lives. The Sunday calls continued, but she stopped using them to complain about me. She accepted he wouldn't discuss our marriage. She still made comments about how things used to be, but she'd learned crying and manipulation wouldn't change his mind. He told me she started attending activities at her apartment building, seemed less focused on controlling him. She joined a book club, a knitting group, complained less about being lonely. The change wasn't dramatic, but over time, she started living her own life. He maintained his once-a-week calls, visited once a month, never stayed more than an hour, and never went without telling me first. 6 months after moving day, he came home from visiting her, a surprised look on his face. She actually seemed to be doing okay. She'd made friends, decorated her apartment, seemed proud of her small space. She was taking a watercolor class, showed him her pieces. He said she seemed more independent, more engaged, than she had been in years. I felt relieved. A part of me had worried she'd never adjust. Knowing she was building her own life, separate from ours, made it easier to relax. He even said she asked fewer questions about us, talked more about her own activities. In late spring, he surprised me with plane tickets for a weekend trip to the coast. We hadn't taken a vacation alone in 3 years. We flew out Friday, spent 3 days walking on the beach, eating at small restaurants, sleeping late. We laughed, held hands, watched sunsets, talked about when we first dated. It felt like meeting each other again. We didn't talk about his mother or the past year. We just existed, together, in the moment, remembering why we fell in love. On the last night, on our hotel balcony, he thanked me for not giving up on us, even when he gave me every reason to leave. He said the trip felt like a fresh start. I realized sometime during that trip that I was genuinely happy again. Not just relieved, not just less stressed, but truly happy. Standing up for myself, refusing to be treated like a stranger in my own home, had saved both my house and my marriage. If I had backed down, if I had kept trying to make peace, she would still be living with us, and I would still be miserable. He told me on the plane ride home that he was grateful I was strong enough to force the change he couldn't make himself. He'd been so afraid of conflict with his mother that he let her destroy our marriage piece by piece. Watching me stand firm showed him what real strength looked like. He was trying to learn from my example. A few nights after we got back, we sat in our living room, talking about the future for the first time in months. He wanted a fresh start, better communication, real partnership. We talked about maybe trying for a baby in the next year or two if therapy kept making progress. Another trip in the fall. Visiting my family for the holidays this year. He promised he would never let anyone, including his mother, come between us again. He understood now that being a good husband meant choosing his wife first, setting boundaries with everyone else. I told him I was willing to keep working on us, but I needed him to maintain the changes. He agreed. Trust had to be earned back through consistent action. We made plans together as equal partners for the first time in our marriage. And it felt right. I invited Maya over for dinner about a month after our trip. She walked in, wine in hand, and stopped dead in the entryway. "The house feels completely different," she said, like the air itself changed. I knew what she meant. The tension was gone. The space felt light, peaceful. She hugged me tight in the kitchen. "I'm so proud of you for standing your ground," she said. "A lot of people would have backed down. But you were willing to lose everything to save what was important." My husband came in, setting the table. He looked uncomfortable for a second, then walked over to Maya. He thanked her for being there for me. He knew he'd let the situation get out of control. He was sorry. Maya studied his face, then nodded. "I accept your apology," she said, "but don't ever let anything like that happen again. She deserves better." He agreed. "I understand that now." We ate, the conversation flowing easily. Maya told funny stories. My husband talked about a case. I felt myself relaxing into the evening. After Maya left, I stood in the kitchen, washing dishes, looking around at the space that was truly mine again. My husband came up behind me, put his arms around my waist. I leaned back against him. The journey had been painful. There were moments I thought our marriage wouldn't survive. But we came through it stronger. We were making plans now as real partners. I felt genuinely excited about our future, not just surviving each day. Looking back, I realized being willing to walk away was the only thing that could have saved us. If I had kept compromising, kept accepting less than I deserved, we would have stayed stuck in that terrible pattern forever. So, tell me, have you ever had to fight so hard for your own home, for your own sanity, against someone who is supposed to be family? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.